Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I'm Frank Swoboda. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them. This week, the most interesting person you've never heard of is...
I'm Michael Sherlock, and I'm the most interesting person you've never heard of. But you should see me when I'm hot pink.
Welcome to the most interesting person you've never heard of. You are one of the most interesting people I've never heard of. But I've heard of you, but a lot of people have not heard of you. So if I was going to describe what you do, what is it?
Great question. And I answer the question differently today than prior to the pandemic. And the reason being is prior to the pandemic, I would have said I am a leadership and sales speaker and trainer.
Because you were.
And I was. And I still am. But, I had built, I've written a couple books on leadership and sales, and I built this business around me speaking and training, which I really love to do. And I'd like to say I'm kind of good at it. But I loved it. And I built up this beautiful, calendar of events all over the world. And then when the pandemic hit, and I kept seeing everything cancel until there was nothing left on the book.
So you were. That's how you made your living.
That's how I made my living.
Speaking, and then everything's canceled.
Yeah.
Not unlike a music.
Yeah.
Right. A performing artist.
Yeah. So many. Wow. And I really for a couple days it's like I always joke.
Put your head under the covers.
I curled in the fetal position and stuck my thumb in my mouth and just cried. And then I remember thinking, and I say that jokingly, but I kind of actually did. And one day I remember I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to restart this? Mm-hmm. Do I just put this on pause until the world starts turning? Mm-hmm. And instead I said, okay, before the pandemic, you knew that you should not have your business be a one-trick pony. It can't just all be about you, because what if you don't want to travel somewhere?
It's probably the thing you teach.
Exactly, it's what I teach. Don't just be a one-trick pony. Da, 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 da.
Hey, here I am, a one-trick pony.
But I really then said, okay, well, what am I going to do? And rebuilt my business and actually started a second business during that time. So now that here we are a couple years later, the speaking and training are coming back.
Sure.
And I'm thankful because I love it. But what I've found now is that I don't have the same need to have those the same way because I have other avenues in my business. Yeah, I've diversified. But now I'm more picky. If I don't feel good about, if I'm like, well, I'm not sure if that's the right group for me at this time, or maybe I don't want to travel that far, I'm not compelled to say I must do it. So today, my business, we do a lot of services for other small businesses. So, I have my podcast. We manage 4 other people's podcasts right now.
We'll come back and talk about that for sure.
Yeah, so we've got things that we do for that. We do, my team does social media marketing. We do customer service reviews for a very large restaurant chain where we manage all of their Pop Menu, Bite Squad, Uber Eats, Open Table, and DoorDash reviews. Wow. And we answer them individually and we... Personally, and we, let that restaurant know when there's problems, and so we're working directly with all their different locations.
Philly?
No, they're. I won't give the name of the chain yet.
That's okay.
I don't think it's.
Oh, it's a chain.
Yeah. They have 33 stores,
okay.
Mostly in the West.
Wow.
And so it's really fun to now have different elements of the business, because now there's different ways that I prove my leadership in sales and my concepts by working with teams as they help other businesses like me, because so many businesses that are like me, a lot of other speakers and trainers or business coaches just folded during the pandemic and, needed to really be able to grow. And now I can help them do that and do it in a way that they can do affordably, but also to see, there's maybe some other avenues of my life and career that are still yet to be that I never would have thought of had we not been forced to stop doing what we were doing.
The big giant reset.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
If you let it be okay.
If you let it, yeah. And it really had to be a choice. I mean, so once I finally realized, okay, curled up in the fetal position, crying and sucking my thumb is only going to get me so far. And it's not going to get me back on track.
Well, you know what the secret to life is? Don't mind what happens.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
That'll hit you at 3 a.m. Whoa. Yeah, right? Whoa. Deep thoughts. It's true. So I first met you in high school.
Long ago.
In high school. We sang together.
Yes, we did.
We were excellent.
Of course.
Just ask us. how good we were.
And do you realize that when I was a freshman, we did.
You were a freshman, and I was like a
junior.
Yeah.
And we what was the name of the spring musical?
I know I look much younger.
I know, we both do. The spring musical that we did.
Little Abner?
No. Oh, it was the weird one, and it was about the sun. Don Grebe was like he was the lead guy. Joel Bonvolet he was like the character that was like the devil kind of thing. Anyway,
I know exactly. Celebration?
Was it? No, was it? It might have been Celebration.
The great Jack Delahanty.
I was the only freshman that was in that
You
musical.
always held yourself way older. I was like, she's a freshman? Well, you did. You faked it really. You're still doing it.
I'm still faking it. That's true.
No, but you hold yourself with, this sort of dignified, way about you. It's true.
Thank you.
But I remember that. Yeah. I thought you were like a year younger.
Yeah.
Which is a lot when you're in high school.
In high school, definitely.
If you're a junior and you think you're a sophomore, that's like 5 years older.
Yes. And I can't believe I just came up with the name Don Grebe.
Don Grebe?
I mean.
Wow, Don. Good if you're out there.
And I had a huge crush on him.
Oh, I did not know
We
this.
actually
Did
dated.
Don know this?
Yes, we dated. We went to one dance together, and then something happened. But for some reason, I was totally enamored with him. Wow. But then, 3 weeks later, I was totally enamored with somebody else.
That hasn't changed.
Well, I was enamored of you as well.
Bless your heart.
But you were way famouser than me.
Whatever. You're so making that crap up. Wow. And so then when you left prep, I didn't see you. Like I lost track. Where'd you go? What happened after that?
I went to Seattle U.
Okay.
And and I got accepted.
How was that for you?
I loved it. It's not where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to Pacific Lutheran.
Yeah, PLU.
That's where I really wanted to go.
Great school. They're both great schools.
I think I applied to 6 colleges. I got into all of them, but I didn't get any scholarships at PLU, and I got like a full ride for the first 2 years at Seattle U.
That's a no-brainer.
But I was so obnoxious that I was mad at my parents. They just wouldn't pay for me to go to PLU.
Now, if you only knew then what you know now.
I know, because the moment I got into Seattle U and I settled into it, I loved it. And it was great.
It's perfect for you.
It was great, and they had Search there, so I got to participate in Search in college a couple times. So those things were really wonderful.
Search is a retreat, a really cool group retreat program that most of the Jesuit schools do, both high school and college all around the country, and it's transformative. I mean, my kids just did it.
Yeah.
They went through prep.
Yeah.
And I did it. My older brothers and sisters did it.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for 40 years, something like that, and
it's
really
beautiful.
Yeah, and that was huge for both my kids, and that whole experience coming out of there. It's like, no matter what, going through that program, and now they have another one called Magis, which is a senior retreat only that my son thought was better than Surge. So it does have a huge impact on just who you are as a person and how you believe in yourself.
And being vulnerable with people that you might not otherwise
especially
be
in high
vulnerable.
School.
Yes.
And I think it breaks up a lot of barriers. I think it's the secret to what makes that community still, 30 plus years later, worse or more.
We don't need to discuss those numbers.
But, the reunions still draw like crazy. I mean, we're going to have another one this August that I'm going to host here, I think. If I'm foolish enough to. But I would think they're tamer now, but I don't know. Every 5-10 years, I think that. And then I find shit the next week that's like, what? Joey Mark put that up at the top of the, whatever. or John Nielsen didn't leave till 4:30 in the morning.
Oh my God, I love it.
And I had to caddy for my nephew at Indian Canyon 2 hours later. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
That I don't think it's probably died down from.
Well, and
career.
I have.
We're from the big '80s, man. We know how to party. So
I went to 10 and I went to 20. I organized our 20, but I haven't gone to the last couple. So
so this year they're doing 3.
Yeah,
so
I know because of everybody missing.
You got to come to this one.
Well, and I think that's really wonderful because that's extra fun to be able to see other people in those other grades. It kind of is
because you do connect with other classes that we were there. I mean, I did. I had friends from both, kind of the whole gamut of it. It's a cool place. That was a fun experience. So you went to CLU, and then where'd you go after that? I don't know this, honestly.
Yeah, well, I actually then came back. I didn't graduate from Seattle U. I graduated from EWU.
Okay,
and
that's right.
Now I understand, and this is just kind of it's not necessarily an aside, but it's something that I didn't really talk about openly for a long time in my life. But I Looking back now, I know that my senior year of high school, I suffered from depression, and I had another major depressive episode.
Senior
in
high
college.
school.
And so all of a sudden, life in my junior year of college became completely overwhelming to me. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't get up to go to class. I started falling, things that had never happened.
That does not seem like you.
I know. And what I know now is I no longer say I suffer from depression. I learned how to live with depression. And so I manage it. I've learned how to manage depression in a completely different way. I do it because of how I eat, how I sleep, and how I exercise, and now meditation. And those things, now I understand it. But at that time I didn't. So I just kind of lost it, and I came back and then eventually got married, and, then you start a career. And next thing you know it, you're going, wow, those pieces of my life were really important. And I didn't always stop to appreciate, even when they got really tough, what that meant for me. It's, as we get older, we reflect a little differently, but it was a tough time.
Wow. I didn't. And now, it's much more, back then you didn't talk about that.
No, not at all. And, thinking about it, I graduated high school in 1987. I'm not ashamed of that number.
Nobody's doing the math.
But that's the year that Prozac went out on the market. And that was the first time as a community, as a world, we started talking about depression. But it was too early for me, because really I had that first depressive episode my senior year. So it was even prior to that. And now I'm thinking about how thankful I am that today we talk about feelings and we talk about emotions. And especially since the pandemic, we talk about how people are doing, and we check in with people differently.
True. Because
in my day, you just did not discuss that.
Right.
Just put a smile on, just be happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the younger the generation now, the more they're aware of it and talk about it. And
Absolutely.
I think it's really healthy.
Oh, yeah. I think about like the Powerade new commercials. It's like, take a power break. And so you've got Simone Biles, and you've got some of these other high profile people who've said, my mental health is my priority.
I know. And they're making stands about it.
Oh, and it makes my heart so happy.
Yeah, I'm sure I have probably suffered from that and don't kind of realize it even, or have just, like you said, you just fight through or whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody has tough times, right? That they have to overcome or deal with. And it's the stuff that you overcome that I think that probably makes you better. So you've written books. You have a very successful podcast.
Thank you.
Yes. First podcast I was ever on was that. You've inspired this.
And we actually are almost...
You did inspire this.
We are almost about to release our 500th episode.
Are you kidding? What?
Yeah. So the last two...
Like, you're number 11 for me. How am I not out of the gate?
The last 2 years we've been
13, I don't know.
We've been doing 5 episodes a week for the last 2 years. We're dialing down now, and we're going to do 3 a week. We've been doing 3 a week for the last couple months.
That must kill you.
Yeah, I've had to learn how to manage my energy.
Just my episode alone was 2 parts, which now I'm like, whoa, did I talk too much or what? Yeah, because having done, I think you're 13 or 14 here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
I don't know when this will
And I'm
drop.
glad I inspired you to that.
No, you did. I'm like, huh. Actually, my son, Nick, you met Nick, he's like, you should do this, because this is what I do every day. Yeah. Like I literally today interviewed 4 people, and then I'm doing this, and I'm like, this is a lot. But she's leaving to go back to Philly. I got to talk to her.
Well, and the thing, for a while when we were doing 5 episodes a week, I would actually tape those in 1 week out of the month. And so I would do, and I was exhausted.
You're like Pat Sajak. Yeah. You're like you figured out, you just want to be a game show host. Like
exactly. I kind of would. I wouldn't mind. I'm not going to
What were you voted most likely in high school to be?
None. Nothing. Oh, but I'll tell you a funny story.
That's a lie.
I was nothing. However, you remember at the end, in choir at the last concert of every year, there was always some awards that were given, most inspiring or whatever. Yeah. And I really thought I was going to win one of those.
I would think you would.
And I was like, look,
John Walk, come on.
I do everything.
You do everything.
And
you did everything.
As they kept giving the awards to everybody else, I was standing there smiling, but inside I was like,
I'm not going to go.
I didn't need to be in the yearbook for Miss Anything, but it was
wanted
so
to be recognized
important.
for that choir.
And so I'm smiling and I'm like, whatever. And we're all done because all those awards were done.
Shit.
And John Walk says, we actually have one more award. And he says, I'd like to have Jack Delahanty come up. And so Jack walks out and he said, we actually decided to create a new award and it's never been given before, but we wanted to recognize someone for their outstanding contributions to choir and drama. I'm going to get all choked up. And they created my own little plaque. They never gave it to anybody else. And I still have it in my box of stuff. I'm getting you choked up. I'm choked up.
That's awesome.
And they both, those two men were so pivotal in my life.
Everybody's life.
So pivotal. And I miss John Walk so much.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that we still have Jack.
No kidding.
But they gave me, they gave me the confidence to do the things that I did. They gave me, a whole new way to look at myself.
That was a transformative moment.
Oh, it was so powerful.
You wouldn't probably be doing what you're doing now without that moment.
Yeah, I know that it gave me...
Maybe, but not...
Yeah, maybe so, but I probably wouldn't have still felt the fire to know that I'm recognized even when maybe I didn't know I was recognized.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that award. You were really awesome. I mean, you were, yeah. What's I'm like, you're a freshman playing in the... That's a big deal. And there's some talented people in that joint.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so cool. I didn't know that.
I still have it. In fact, about 6 months ago, I was going through some things in my house, and I have this one little box that still has my most precious memories. And I have like my, Jazz Connection, sweatshirt, Connection. I had all this stuff. And in there is that little plaque. And I just pulled it out again and just like held it for a moment.
That's
just went,
so great.
wow.
Totally. That's such a great...
It was cool.
Yeah, what a gift those two guys gave. Yeah. And then John Walk, died really young.
Really young.
Had cancer, and I think it was a really tough ride, and it was tough. I remember his funeral was just, Jack had to give the eulogy, and those two were so close.
I know.
Yeah, it was crazy. I remember that one of the best parts of when I was a senior, I was the ASB president, and we had this, do you remember the pep con? We did these pep cons, and I was
you were so good.
I was Jim Lang, the host of the dating game.
Oh my God, I remember that.
And so I think I've already told this on one of these podcasts. I don't even remember what I say on these things. I'm like, oh, the guy says the same story every week. But we were like, how are we going to do this? So we had a freshman girl. I don't care if I repeat it because it's still pretty great. We had a freshman girl and 3 senior guys. Oh, yeah. So it was like Tim Sanger and Dave Hawkins or something, and I don't know who the other guy was, but it was 3 seniors. So she comes out and it's like, hey, it's the dating game. And you, freshman girl, who was just adorable. She was really sassy and really funny, and we cast it great. And she was just really smart. But she really, she's like, if you went, whatever one of these guys you choose will go to the night flight dance with you.
Oh, God.
So that's
wonderful.
That's a lot at stake already.
Yeah,
right?
No kidding.
And so there's a curtain between, and the crowd, of course, can see the whole deal. And so the curtain goes up, and it's like, okay, bachelor number 1. And then the senior guys leave, and 3 teachers come in. So it was Jack Delahanty, who was dressed in 1970. We were all dressed like 1970s. Oh my gosh, I did this last one. The dating game. So, we're all dressed in this thing, and Jack is like all discoed out.
Oh my God,
he is full on drama teacher.
I wish we had pictures of that still. They've got to be somewhere because I remember that.
I think it's probably in the yearbook.
Oh,
I think
probably.
It was all gold. Like the whole thing was a gold suit. And John Walk's just wearing what he normally wore. And the third teacher, bachelor number 3 was Tom Zwinell. So those who don't know,
I was thinking it was Bob Nedved, but no, it was
Tom
Zwinell.
Who is
oh my God,
a large dude,
a large man.
Okay, large man, science teacher, very stoic, not kind of dry humor, but whatever. And the fact that he did it was like,
oh my God,
amazing. So I'm like, okay, she would ask questions like, bachelor number 1, if I was Tarzan and you were Jane, whatever, they would come with all these questions. And so they get down to it. And finally, it's like, she's got to decide. Are you going to do with bachelor number 1? So one of the questions along the way is, she goes, bachelor number 3, who is Zwinell, the big guy. She's like, bachelor number 3, what? That's the only one I remember. And I had the teachers write their own questions. They wrote the questions, which was awesome.
That's really
and more
good.
risque than I would have pulled off. Private school. And she's like, bachelor number 3, use one word to describe yourself. And this guy's, he's a big dude. And he just leans in and goes, petite. And the crowd goes, it was just like this huge, I'm like, whoa, we got something here, man. And so we get it done. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, who are you going to pick? And she's like, and the crowd's going crazy, pick number 2, because Delahanty's all like dressed up. And she's like, I'm picking bachelor number 2. And so I'm like, well, okay, well, you could have picked bachelor number 1. And then the teacher leaves, and the football player comes out, and just a handsome football player comes out and gives her a hug, or number 3, and Dave Hawkins comes out, and she's like, oh, I could have had those 2 guys. I can't wait to see who number 2 is. And instead, you're going to the night flight with Mr. Delahanty.
Yes.
And she is just like shocked in the crowd. I'll never forget when he comes around the corner and goes, hey.
You know what? I would have loved that. I would have totally gone to the night flight with him.
Well, a week later, he comes. I have his class, and he's like, "Hey, come here." I go, "What?" He goes, "So I'm in the hallway, and that girl, the freshman girl that did the PepCon, I go, hey, I'll pick you up at 8, and we'll get a burger." And she's like, "Okay." She thinks I'm really going to the dance with her. You got to get me out of this. And I just go, no.
Nope. You're on your own, buddy.
You're on your own.
Oh, my God.
You fool.
Oh, that's so funny.
That was the best moment of that. That was, like, for me, the first project I ever produced.
I was going to say,
that
was
my pivotal
back
moment.
then.
I was like, I could do this.
Yeah.
And we had an hour. We did all this stuff that, other things, too, that were really kind of timed out. And it's one of those moments where in this business and life, really, if you just let it, it will all time out perfectly. Einstein time, you'll be right on time for what you're supposed to be. And it was so much fun. We were so in the moment of that whole thing. It ended exactly at 1 hour.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for whatever reason, like I'd planned it, but we had a sense, but no way you were right on the thing. So 2 weeks later, I get a letter. A week later, I get a handwritten letter from Sister Boss.
Oh, man.
She was her name.
Yes, literally.
Okay.
Literally.
And I don't think it's unfair to say that Sister Boss, for those who know her, would resemble Marge Simpson's sisters.
Oh, God, yes. Oh,
I mean, she had the fro and the
her
whole
voice.
thing. And her voice,
Oh, yeah.
Come over here.
Oh.
And I was scared of her, and I did not have a class with her, so you would just avoid Sister Boss. So
I had her for geometry.
Did you? Okay, so scary.
The only person who ever gave me jug. That's another
Intimidate.
story.
Well, you probably deserve it. But I get this letter. I'm like, oh shit, I am so in trouble. What did I do? It's like, this is about the PepCon. I'm like, oh God, I offended her. I said something I shouldn't have said. And we called the whole thing Good Attitude Day. You have to have a good attitude to dress like this, was sort of the whole theme, which was, it was all kind of tongue in cheek, but it was funny. And she writes this handwritten letter, says, I've been here 25 years, best PepCon I've ever been a part of. It was on time. It was appropriate. It was fun. It was silly, but it never went across the line. You kept it classy. Congratulations. And I was just like, what? I don't think I ever talked to her in the 4 years that I was there.
And then you're like,
because she had this
Sister
aura
Boss
of
knows
just
my name.
Yeah, she right. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I think I kept that letter. I mean, that to me meant more than anybody else, because I didn't even know her, but she's watched a lot of them.
Oh gosh, yes.
And it was like, okay, cool. And that was really the thing. I'm like, I can do this. Whatever this is, entertaining people, putting on something, telling a story, having it be, ridiculous sometimes or moving, but that really was like, this is easy for me. It's not tough. I don't know. And I've sort of done that. It was kind of,
no kidding.
That place kind of finds that for you. I think it kind of pulls that out of you. So you went on to kind of corporate life?
Yeah, I did. Well, I started out actually as a teacher. I got my degree in education. I taught for 1 year.
You went to Eastern, the best school in the world for teachers.
Exactly. I only taught for 1 year, though. I taught at St. Thomas More.
Oh, wow.
And they hired me. So the year that I graduated, all of a sudden there were drops in enrollment. So there weren't enough teaching positions. So I finally, at the last minute, got hired at St. Thomas More because their 7th grade teacher, who also taught English Lit, he and his wife were expecting triplets or something. So they go, well, we need needed somebody to teach 7th grade English Lit, and that was my major. And then we need somebody to teach computer classes for the others. They're like, can you do that? I'm like, yes.
What's a computer?
What's a computer?
We're from the 80s. We're not from the 90s.
Well, luckily they were Apple IIes, and all you had to do was put in the floppy disk, and it would run a program.
Oh, easy.
So it worked out well. But at the end of that year, the teacher was back. They didn't need me, and there were no teaching positions.
Right.
So teachers were being laid off.
Yeah.
So I actually, I didn't know what to do that whole summer. It was very stressful. But at the very end, like September, which I wish I would have just enjoyed the summer. Just enjoy the summer. But
welcome to life there.
I ended up getting 3 job offers, all in the same day. And the one I took was with Consumer Credit Counseling Service. So it was a nonprofit.
Yep.
And I was their director of education.
Oh, wow.
And then after a few years there, I ran their marketing. So I was the head of marketing, education, and public relations. And I managed.
That was a good brand. You did a
great.
good job with that. I remember that for sure.
We did really well. And it was that I helped grow that group.
I did some work for them at some point.
Probably. Andrew Talley did a lot of our commercials. I knew you guys. Yeah, because we had Vince DeFelice show up one day.
Well, he worked with me. So yes. Vince
God, I have some funny Vince DeFelice stories. I told him too, and he's like, "Oh my God."
He will be on soon.
Oh, I love him so much.
He's amazing.
He's great. He is
amazing.
Vincenzo, so fun.
I've known Vince since I was 6.
Forever.
Or 7, I guess.
But and I really, the thing that I loved most about working there is that all of a sudden I was doing media stuff. So I was constantly being called by, television, radio, newspaper, everywhere. Right. So I got really comfortable being on air. I swear CBS or, Creme would only call me because they'd know, I'd show up at 5 a.m. to do the 5 a.m. broadcast.
You were the only one who would show up.
Yeah, they're like, call Michael, she'll get there.
I'll be there.
I was on the news all the time. And I really loved that. That gave me a different level of confidence, but then also being responsible for creating programming and content and, teachable moments. It was really great. And I had no idea I'd understand marketing, the way I did. And so
instinctively.
Yeah, and it really just flowed. So as I spent other time in my corporate career over time, the last positions that I held before starting this business is I was a VP of sales for 2 different hearing aid companies where I was responsible for about 500 people, each company, and about $100 million a year in revenue.
Sheesh. And
I learned that I could manage and lead people really successfully.
At a big level.
At a very big level. So I ran all of our U.S. stores.
Wow.
And so I also learned how to work on a global scale because our parent companies were in Denmark and we had partners all over the world. So I was partnering with people in so many different, I think 17 different countries.
Was that all in Spokane?
No, I was by that time. Well, by the time I was in those positions, I was living in Philadelphia, where I am now.
Okay.
But I did a lot of travel. In fact, as of today, or as of a couple of weeks ago, I've been to 49 of the 50 states.
Wow.
I don't know how many countries I've been.
You got me. I got 39.
All I have left is Maine. Maine is my only state left.
That's great.
I know. I can't
Maine's
wait to go.
the best.
I know. We just hit Rhode Island at the beginning
of Maine.
of April.
Go to Camden, Maine.
Okay.
It's the best place in the world.
Penobscot
Bay.
Yeah.
I'd sailed on that with a dark and stormy in my hand. Maine is amazing.
So
very similar. I think the people are very similar to here.
Yeah.
I found that to be the case. Yeah. Just, really cool and not pretentious.
Well, we just got Rhode Island off the list for me. So my husband has 3 states left to go, and I now have one. So
my brother just got all 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel very fortunate because as my career advanced, and I got these opportunities at higher and higher levels, I really learned different ways about how I could operate and how I had to learn about being a better leader. And because managing 5 people is different than 20 people, different than 50 people, different than 500 people.
That's true.
And you have to evolve. And if you try to be the same person that you were that was successful managing 5 people, you will not ever make it higher than that. You have to learn how to adapt.
Really? Mm-hmm. What's the biggest thing you learned? What's the biggest difference? One thing.
Understanding how to let my team make their own mistakes and not try to solve it, fix it, give them the answers.
Sounds like marriage advice.
It really is. And it's actually, it's great parenting advice.
Yeah.
The name of my first book is called Tell Me More.
Mm-hmm.
And then the subtitle is How to Ask the Right Questions and Get the Most Out of Your Employees. But it's really about stopping to say, instead of always, if you were the person that was always good at solving problems, you were always the one that could deliver, you could deliver results, then when you start to lead, you have to operate differently. And when you operate at different levels, those things that you are good at, you can't just keep relying on them because it'll only be about you.
They'll actually undermine it.
Yeah, well, it absolutely will.
If you have to fix it, you just do stuff, and you're more in action and less in asking and listening.
Yeah.
Listening probably becomes way more important, I think.
Absolutely.
The more I can ask my team what's going on rather than telling them what we're doing next.
Yeah.
Has been I don't think I'd be in business 20 years. There's no way.
Well, and that's the thing. I finally learned.
I still probably don't do it as well as I know I should. But.
Well, and I think we all suffer from that. I mean, now I lead. I have a team. Between my two companies, I have 17 people, and they're all remote. My whole teams are.
That's a cool. I want to talk about that because that is welcome to the new world, right?
Yeah, and my whole team is in Kenya. So I mean, talk about real remote. They're really remote, working on different time zones. I mean, right now I'm 11 hours time difference.
Was that a scary thing to you? Did you think? I don't know if that's.
I didn't intend to have 17 people in Kenya. In the beginning when
you found one good one and they led to more.
Exactly. Wow. And then all of a sudden people said, well, how did you find, this person?
How did that happen?
So this is really fun. So I had a client of mine who was based in Singapore, and he had offices. Because
you and I had worked on a little thing together.
Yes.
In Singapore. I wanted to talk about the overseas thing because you actually have a lot of that experience.
Yeah, I did, and that's actually with working with him with his app. I don't work with them any longer, but
I was a beta tester on one of the apps. I think. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
it was cool.
Yeah, and it's a great thing, but they kind of didn't finish it all the way. It needed to be finished before the pandemic, so now they're a little behind the eight ball.
I bet. Yeah.
But he had teams in Thailand, Kenya, and Nepal. And I got really close with the gal who headed up the program in Kenya. So when I went to visit their offices in Singapore and Thailand in summer of 2019.
I mean, you just had to.
I had to. It was awesome.
I bet that was awesome.
And but the gal from Kenya flew over. She'd never been on an airplane. She'd never been out really of her town in Nairobi.
Wow.
And except for, to where other family is,
it's
and
a pretty
kind of
big
out.
City.
Yeah. And she and I just became really good friends. I just love this woman. And so all of a sudden I thought, I could do this too. I could have somebody. I know the quality of these people. Most of them have at least one master's degree.
Wow.
But unemployment is exceptionally high, and the workforce in Kenya is really interesting. Many businesses will require you to work. You know how we have like a 90-day probation period? Mm-hmm. Many companies don't pay you during that probation period.
Oh, it's like an internship.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And then at the end, they just let you go, and then they get somebody else to do it. And so
talk about stress.
And jobs are so hard to come by that people will claw at each other to keep their job. Wow. So it's really interesting. So I thought, well, I know Esther. Maybe she'll help me to introduce somebody. And she goes, I said, Esther, do you have somebody, that maybe could help me with my marketing and some kind of a virtual assistant? She goes, hire me. And I was still working with her employer. I said, I can't do that because that would be unethical for me to take you away from him. And by the way, she works for me now. And so she introduced me to somebody else who also worked part-time for that person. And she's like, take me. And I said, no. And she also works for me now. But they found people for me. And then in the beginning, I just, kind of gave them like a referral fee. And by the time people started asking me, how did you find all these people? I'd interviewed over 100 people for the 10 positions that I'd had right then. And this was at the beginning of the pandemic. And I just decided to double down on everything I wanted to do with my business, all my marketing, all my PR, the YouTube channel, all the things I'd wanted to do, but I was too busy to do because I was traveling. I just hired more people, doubled down on everything, and built my business faster.
Wow. And you stayed really one person.
Yes.
Which is smart.
And then when people began to take notice and said, how can I do that? One day I had 3 people in one day say, how did you find Josie, who managed my podcast then? And I said to my husband that night, I go, 3 people asked me today if I could introduce them to him. Mm-hmm. I think we need to start another company.
Right.
So now we help make placements and we help manage people. So we have virtual assistants working with clients all over the world, actually.
Wow.
So
wow,
yeah.
I may have to talk to you about that.
Yeah,
for this, right?
It's wonderful. So they, I have teams that do all my editing and they do social media marketing and posting, and I've got one guy who just works on my 4 websites now. So
wow,
yeah, it's really amazing. There's some ups and downs with it. There's positives and negatives, but it's really not any different than any other positives and negatives.
Right.
They're just different.
Right.
I mean, I said it wasn't any different. They're just different things. but you still have some of the same headaches and you have other great opportunities.
Right.
So,
And people are like, oh, podcast, that'd be fun to do.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's a lot of work.
3 cameras, we got lights here.
I know. I'm very impressed with you.
Yeah. This is what we do every day as a production company.
And I love the fact that you have,
and whiskey.
Some really good whiskey for your guests.
Amador Whiskey, who will someday be a sponsor of this podcast.
I love it.
But yeah, I mean, we've kind of got all that, but I started counting out. I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's about 8 people that have touched this podcast from my team, and my kids have been really cool. My daughter helped social media on this, and Nick produced this, and he does the theme music, and does the audio mixing of this, and Zach's from
You do need to have though a page on your website that says your podcast. Because I went through and I scrolled through your whole website. I'm like,
on my Corner Booth podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's a Corner Booth piece.
I know.
Right. No. Thank you.
But you tie everything together, man.
I know. Yeah. That's exactly.
See, I'm not just a pretty marketing face.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. I know. We're sort of past the testing stage. We had that in mind, but it's like, let's see if this thing works first. but it has been. I mean, we're getting people to watch it. So
well, don't you have one with like 10,000 views?
Yeah, so that's brilliant, because that's my son's Nick's idea. He is like the most natural marketer in the friggin' world. He's just a brilliant, I think, just a really savvy kind of social media marketer for one, but he's an entertainer and he's a producer and an artist, and produces a lot of, makes a lot of music around the world for lots of clients around the world and stuff. But he's like, what you really need to do are these silly promotions.
Yes.
That sort of say who you are, and then we'll boost those. And my daughter kind of did a great job making sure those got everywhere. But yeah, I got 10,000 views on this. It's like, that's crazy.
I know, it's fantastic.
But we were working on more of these things to come this week, which are pretty fun, and we'll be filming one with you, which will be, I think, one of the better ones we've come up with. But I don't want to blow it up too much. But it's really, I've learned a ton about this whole side of the world, and honestly, the power of sort of TikTok and Facebook Story and all these other sort of Instagram, some of the other tools that are available to promote stuff. We're sort of a test drive here for our other clients. So this has been kind of a really great way to sort of see how that goes. And what we've discovered is we have a lot of projects that we're doing for other clients where we're filming interviews, let's say, about a particular topic with 2 or 3 cameras. And for at least 2 clients right now, we're going to turn that entire interview that we've already filmed, because typically we'll film a whole half-hour interview, let's say, or more longer, and we'll take the best moments of that to put a video together. Now we realize, wait a minute, the entire conversation is pretty good.
Absolutely.
And so what if we just cut that all together, and that becomes its own podcast for that brand?
Yes.
And it's like, oh, wait a minute, because people want to hear everything.
Yes.
And it's, we have a particular project that I'll be talking about in future episodes, a homeless and housing project that we're kind of analyzing that for a client, telling a really cool web series, several stories on what is the problem with homelessness, how do we solve it. We went to Houston, Texas a couple weeks ago and filmed there with the experts in their homeless problem, and they've cut their homeless population by 65% in the last 10 years. And they're, in my opinion, by far, from everybody that we could research, they have the lowest per capita homeless population of any major city in America.
Wow. And
so we met all the key players and that did that. And we did these extensive interviews with all of them to put together in a probably 2-part series on that experience. It's like, wait a minute, that whole interview is a podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
And we researched that problem, and we realized that there really isn't a lot of other there really aren't a lot of other material out there, a lot of podcast material out there, or any material out there about this issue,
right,
with leading people. So we've kind of got this great bunch of content. It's like, we want people to hear the entire conversation.
Yes.
And what struck me about it was, typically you have people that you would think would be on completely different sides of a topic. And they are to some extent. But we had the chance to interview 2 people in particular here that you would think, based on what I've seen in the news and other stuff, would be completely on opposite sides of this issue, right? And when you sit down and listen to them, they agree with at least 60% or maybe 80% of the same stuff. Like, she thinks this and he thinks this, about 80% of it. 20% they would disagree on. If I'm in media, television, news,
we usually
they only show the 20%. They never talk about the 80 that really matters.
Right.
And it sort of struck me, well, we're bypassing that, the need to just tell the 20% that divides everybody.
Yes, exactly.
And lets everybody hear the whole thing.
Yes.
And mostly you're going to hear the 68% they agree with.
Yeah.
And that is a game changer in terms of how we communicate and how we get along and how we like each other in this world and all that stuff. So this format, I just think is, the more I kind of do these podcasts and get involved in it and watch you and stuff that goes on, the more you realize, wow, there is an audience for this.
Absolutely.
And they really want to hear it because people want to hear more than, tell me more, right?
Right.
So that was your first, Tell Me More was your first book and your first podcast. Or your only podcast?
My podcast is called Shock Your Potential.
That's right, Shock Your Potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my primary business name is Shock Your Potential.
Tell Me More was the first book you did.
First book, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so the second one's called Sales Mixology: Why the Most Potent Sales and Customer Experiences Follow a Recipe for Success.
And I think I got to be a beta on the covers. You had 3 covers to choose from.
Yes. Yeah,
we
had a lot of fun. We had
cool.
It was really great. I actually have 2 more business books that I have not finished either one of them, but it's on the agenda, not for 2022, but for 2023.
It's okay if you don't get that done.
Well, and then I also have my novel. So I know I have so many things.
You have a novel? What's the hell is a novel?
Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah, my book that's based in Greece.
Oh my God. Which is totally an excuse for you to go to Greece. But anyway.
I know, exactly. But it's, there's a lot of things. I love writing.
Right, we did talk about that.
And
cool.
writing to me is really, and not an escape, but it's a different way for me to communicate. I love putting things into writing to make people stop and think of how you write. I haven't done my blog for quite a while, but for a long time, and it's what built me up to 20,000 followers on LinkedIn, is I would write this blog called Thoughts from the Coffee Table. And I think when I first started, I was thought of the day or whatever, but Thoughts from the Coffee Table, I would sit down every day and have my coffee and, my feet up on the coffee table kind of thing and say, what did I see? And I'm always taking pictures. So I see these weird pictures. And one that sticks out at me was I was in a parking lot somewhere and there was a candy corn that had been driven over. So it's completely like it's been gone over with a steamroller. And so, I'll come up with the picture and then I'll come up with something witty, about it. And then I'll write a story that has to do with leadership or sales and try and bring it all through. And what I loved about that medium on LinkedIn was you have to tell a story in a post in 1,300 characters or less. Mm-hmm. So you max out at 1,300 characters. So you have to use words so carefully.
Mm-hmm. Economy.
Yeah. And really think about what kind of impact those words are going to make and how you use punctuation. And so to me, those things are just a great way for us to stop and slow down and communicate differently. To your point, I think podcasting does that because it gives people a different way to hear stories. That is not, and I love them visually too, because we do everything in video, also in audio, but my biggest followers are not with having people watch them on our YouTube channel, but when they actually download them, from wherever they get
it's an interesting, I think that's a generational thing. Mm-hmm. So, not surprisingly, most of the people who listen to this are over 40.
Yeah.
Sorry. But those who are under,
yes,
my son is 25 and Zach and in their 20s who produces this, they are, we had this conversation and I'm like, I'll do a podcast. It'd be great. I just, show up in my jammies, whatever. They're like, no, we're filming it. I'm like, what? What are you filming it? A podcast? I only listen to Apple Podcasts or whatever, Spotify or whatever, my podcast app.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, really? No, podcasts are filmed. I'm like, no, they're not. They're like, yes, they are. Like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, I only watch podcasts on YouTube. They only watch podcasts on YouTube.
Yep.
And I only listen to podcasts not on YouTube.
Yeah.
Although we have an audience on YouTube, right?
Yep.
And that's really the place we want people to see it because it's cool, it's visual. Right. And I was just like, there is a generation gap here.
Yeah.
Because they listen to podcasts while watching YouTube.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And we don't watch YouTube. We listen to podcasts on a podcast app. So most of the people that are, although we have a pretty decent audience on YouTube, probably because we're shooting it cool. But most people who are listening to this right now are listening to it on an Apple podcast or a Spotify.
So they can't see how awesome we look.
Well, and that leads me to the most obvious question of all. What's up with the hair?
What about my hair? What? Is there something different about my hair?
So just so people know, this is not a special occurrence.
No.
This is part of your deal.
Absolutely.
Your shtick.
Part of my persona now.
Your persona.
Yeah.
How long have you... So just to be clear, this is what I understand to be the case. Every time I see you, it's a different color.
Absolutely.
And or several colors.
Yes.
How often do you change it?
Every 6 to 8 weeks.
Every 6 to 8 weeks, it's a new color.
Yes.
And how do you pick the color, and how long have you been doing this?
Okay, so how I pick the color, I'll answer that first, is, well, like my son's getting married in a few weeks. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
So the hair will not be this color, but I was, so
what
right
will
now.
It be?
So right.
Or is that a surprise?
No, not yet. Well, so I knew though that I had dresses.
We can wait until the wedding so we don't spoil it.
No, that's fine. But I knew I had some dresses coming in like a daffodil yellow. So I wanted to have green in my hair this time to see how the green looked with those dresses.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And it looks great. But the dress that I think I'm going with is kind of a mauve. It's kind of like a nice soft pink, or not really pink. It's a little more mauve. And so I think if that's the dress I go with, then we'll go back with some kind of purples and pinks in the hair too.
That'll be lovely.
Exactly. Well, last time I had it like hot pink.
Well, the last time I saw you, it was, I think, every color of the rainbow.
Yes, I love that. I actually really love that because it matches my logo.
Sort of a Pride Week thing. It was very cool.
It does kind of look like that. That's
totally
true.
Does. Yeah,
well, that's
cool.
how my logo, though, for Shock Your Potential has
that's right.
all those colors.
That's right.
I like to do that one,
That's
especially if I'm going to go if I'm doing a really big speaking gig somewhere where I'm really trying to command a lot of attention. I'll a lot of times do that because then they're like, oh my God, this matches your business card or whatever.
Because
like, yes,
we filmed you once.
Yes.
We helped do sort of the promotion kickoff video
Yes.
of your speaking tape.
Absolutely.
Right? And that was cool.
Yeah.
Getting to film your whole thing. My
was
wife Johanna
great.
still loves that. She was like, "Don't tell her hi." I remember that.
God.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
And we still use those clips. I mean, those are my
really
speaker
cool.
reels. Yeah.
It turned out awesome.
Oh, it did.
But so when did this start happening, and how did you get to that?
I'm thinking that it's been 8 years now. I was trying to remember how long.
Seems longer than that.
And so what was happening then is I was in one of those really big roles where I was VP of sales, and I was having some work situations that were just incredibly stressful, and I was feeling very out of control. I was really not certain what was going to happen. I was incredibly stressed out, and I went to get my hair done. And as I'm sitting in the chair, and my hair gal says, what color are we doing today? And what that question meant at that point was, what color of blonde are we doing? Are we doing white blonde, red blonde?
Right.
Are we doing a little...
When you were in high school, you were a blonde.
I was very blonde, yes. And then things changed. Life changes, and it's not blonde anymore. But I remember, I knew she was saying what color blonde, but she said, what color are we going to do? And I was so stressed and I was so tense. And I said, let's just put navy blue right in the bangs. And she looked at me, she goes, are you serious? Because if you are, we can totally do that. And I had this moment where I looked at her and I was about to say, no, I'm not serious. And I went, let's do it.
Fuck it.
Exactly. Exactly.
We're doing this.
And so we did. We got a navy blue.
That level of stress.
I was that level of stress.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, when I walked out of that salon that day, I felt powerful. Like when you're doing the Wonder Woman pose or the Superman pose and all those things.
That?
Yeah.
No, but okay.
And well, there's Amy Cuddy, has her big TED Talk on, how you have that pose. And that hair gave me that pose. All of a sudden I was taller.
You're a superhero.
Yeah. All of a sudden I was like,
you had permission.
I may not be able to control what's happening to me right now, but I can control my hair.
Did it become a persona?
Yes,
absolutely. It became your superhero.
It became something that I was like, this is power for me.
You don't screw with this chick.
Yeah. And for me...
It is powerful. It is.
And for me,
striking.
It also... I remember...
It gives you a confidence, doesn't it?
Yes. And I remember people saying, oh, I could never do that because my business is really professional. I'm like, I sell hearing aids. We sell hearing aids. How much more blah does that have to be, right? And I said, if I need people to understand that I can do a really serious job, but I can still be me.
Right.
And it changed.
It does fit you. It is you.
Thank you.
It is
and now
totally
I cannot imagine. I did ask my soon-to-be daughter-in-law if she would prefer that I didn't have colorful hair.
That's cool. Because it's her wedding.
It's her wedding.
Exactly right.
And she looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, why would I do that?
She goes, she probably doesn't know you without it.
I know. She goes, I can't wait to see what hair color you come in with. And I was very thankful, but I wanted to be very respectful.
No, it's cool.
It's her day. She's got to have the pictures are for her. So,
sure.
And my son, but.
Yeah. What? No, they're for her.
Exactly. So, but I think that for me then today, I have so much fun with it. And sometimes I'll just go, sometimes I'll say to my hairstylist, we'll be looking at things and she'll send me pictures or whatever. Sometimes I'll go, I don't know, what do you think? And, we'll make it up as we go along. In the beginning, I wasn't always as bold as I am now, except for that blue. Because I think I kind of backed off of it a little bit for a while. And then I'm just like, I'm all in.
I mean, the bolder it is, the cooler it is.
Absolutely.
This is pretty tame.
And this is kind of tame, actually.
It is for what usually you've got going on, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what advice do you give to people then? What did you learn from that we should all take home?
That you need to not worry about what everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
Because every time you're worrying about whatever anybody else thinks, and it can't mean that you just say to the world, screw the rest of the world. But if we're so concerned with what everybody else thinks is right, or how we should act, or how we should dress, or how we should have ideas, we lose the essential parts of us. And what I found is when this was like opening a door for me that said, okay, be creative, be who you want to be. And that heightened my success as well.
Right.
Because then I didn't care anymore about anybody else except for what I was trying to achieve that was true to me.
There's a great quote. I do not know who said it, but I use it a lot, mostly for my own self-talk. But it's what other people think of me is none of my business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's,
right?
Yeah.
And when I stop being critical of me, it doesn't matter what other people think of me.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the self-critical thing.
Yeah.
It's really doesn't matter what other people think of you, as long as you're not being that way. Right?
Well, and on the flip side, one other thing is that
I don't care what other people are thinking. I won't care if other people are critical of me if I'm not.
And I think that's really it.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of it though, and like next week I'll be leading another training session with a group of emerging leaders within the chemical industry. And I've worked with this group, it's kind of like they have a new class every year. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with them a couple different times. I love working with them because they're trying to make their way in a very tough industry. In a lot of cases in family-run businesses and a lot of things.
And this is leadership work.
This is all leadership work.
And in some of the cases, are these actual chemists? These are sort of marketing and professional.
Yeah, some are
executive teams,
right?
Okay.
So, but they're in a variety of things.
C-suite folks.
Yeah, well, they want to be in C-suites.
Okay.
These are the ones that want to, and they're emerging in their companies and their leaders. And I always ask them, no matter whether it's them or I'm talking to C-suite people, I always say, what are the words that people use to describe you when you're not in the room?
Wow, that's a great question.
And if you don't know the answer, then you are not managing the dialogue.
You're not managing your brand.
Right, exactly. And I said, I can tell you exactly what people know about me when I walk out of a room. And it's because I'm very purposeful in what I say and how I say it.
About it.
I'm very intentional. But I'm not worried about it. I'm very comfortable in my own skin. So I have them go through this exercise where I say, what are the words you think that they describe you? What words do you want? That's a cool exercise. And now how do you think that the words that you want them to describe you at, what can you do? What can you do tomorrow that will help build that? Exactly.
Wow.
And as we build that, what was really fantastic was I had one gentleman who was in one of the programs a couple of years with me, and he came to me. I worked with them like throughout the whole year. I went to 4 different meetings or so with them. And the last one, he said, in that first meeting, I asked you some questions about how to negotiate a raise in the next position, and I listened to what you said about what words I want you to describe me. And I knew that they didn't see me as potential for the role I wanted.
Because he wasn't being that.
He wasn't being that. And he said, I went back and I spent the next 6 months working on it. And then I took your other advice that I asked you last meeting and I negotiated the position and the raise I wanted.
Wow. How'd that make you feel?
I was like,
that's why I do what I do.
I was like, it was like being a parent. I was so proud. I wanted to hug him. I think I did hug him. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. But and he goes, I really never thought about the fact that I wasn't getting the promotions I wanted because I wasn't creating my brand. I wasn't telling the story.
He wasn't stepping into who he was.
Yeah, I wasn't telling the story I knew that I was capable of.
Right. Yeah. I know. And holding himself back the whole time. So you have traveled a lot.
Yeah.
And you said 49 of the 50 states.
Yeah.
How many countries do you have a guess?
The last time I counted it was 17.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot.
I think it's more than that, though. I know it's more than that.
I have a little
thing, a map on my iPad that has them all.
I've got 10 to 15.
Yeah.
And so I have this theory. You're 2 years younger than me. This may be the cutoff. But do you remember Expo 74?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember going to it?
Yes, and I remember it for a couple of reasons. Well, I know that
So people don't know, Expo 74 was the World's Fair that came to Spokane. Spokane was the smallest city to ever host one. And back in the day when those mattered, right? Seattle to Chicago, there had been in these major cities. I mean, the Space Needle is in Seattle because of the World's Fair there, I think in 62.
Yes.
And then, Spokane hosted that.
Yep.
And the entire world came here.
They did.
And we built a park where the
did.
railroad tracks were. And it is now a world-class park. It's phenomenal
absolutely.
today. It just
and I love the fact
if you've
that
been through it now.
I haven't been through it in a while. Oops, I keep hitting this.
That's okay.
But I love the fact that the pavilion with the lights on it.
It looks like your hair, actually.
Oh my God, yes.
No wonder you like it.
I saw it the other night. Of course I like it.
It's a phenomenal use of that. So it's a really great place. So my brother and I grew up there, and we have both traveled a lot of places, probably right in the game that you have. And I have this theory that a lot of that was because of the experience we had of Expo and of walking around and going, oh wow, that's a different country, and the rest of the world came to us. We can go there. Like, have you thought about that at all? If there was any of that influence or
I never thought of that.
Yeah, I think it gave us permission.
Wow.
In a way that other people who grew up in other towns wouldn't have otherwise had. Most people do not have the chance to walk, literally. 10 minutes away, drive and walk through this land of every country
every
in the
pavilion.
world. Every pavilion.
Yeah, the UK.
You could walk into the Russian pavilion.
Yeah, exactly.
You could walk into it was really cool. It was surreal.
I remember there was one where there was somebody in a bathtub. I don't know what it was. And it wasn't like an actual person in the bathtub, but it was like part of their thing.
Display
or
something.
One of those things. I've never thought of it that way. I do know that
I've just not been afraid to travel the world.
No, I haven't either. But I'm the only one of my family. No, I can't say that. My oldest brother's traveled quite a bit, but he tends to go to the same places over and over again. But most of my family, they've all been out of the country somewhere, but not very frequently. I have traveled far more than any of my siblings. I'm the youngest of all 6, but for me, it just I always wanted to see the world. I know. That's what me too. I wanted to eat the food in different places.
Me too. And I just wonder if part of that was that, or maybe that's just the makeup of who we are. But
I don't know. I like it.
I mean, I know a lot of people that. Classmates of ours, Alan Giebel. I remember Ann Giebel and Alan. Alan, I mean, it's like the head of, I think it was Microsoft in Asia. Or some huge deal. I'm like, Al, next time you come here, I got to have you on this podcast. But influential people that have really had an impact on the globe that are from here that I just think were fearless about it.
Well, I was listening.
We had sort of permission.
I was listening to your episode with the women with the where they cook all the different foods from the different countries.
Maisa.
Yeah.
Abadaya. Yeah. And Feast World Kitchen's amazing.
So number one, I was like,
first of all, you got to go.
I was going to say, I need to go.
Yes, you do.
I was like, why did I listen to this when I have to leave in 2 days? But the second thing is I loved it when what I loved is she said, well, I'd always heard of Spokane. I thought it was a great place to go. And I'm like, because when she was growing up in, where was she from? And I can't think.
Yeah, she's.
Anyway, I know. I'm blanking too. And I just listened to it.
I don't think it's Afghanistan.
No, but it's. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm forgetting.
I know, but wherever she's from, and she said, I always knew about the American dream.
I
thought it might have been somewhere in Syria. And she said, I always
Jordan. She's from Jordan.
From Jordan, that's right. And she said, I always wanted to, live the American dream, so I want to do it. But I'd heard about Spokane, and I'm like, who hears about Spokane?
Well, I think her sister lived here. I think her sister lived here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, her sister told her.
I was like, wow, we've made the map.
Yeah. No, my favorite part of that episode was her saying, we would watch American movies, and it was mostly Die Hard. Bruce Willis. And I'm like, that's what we sell to the world.
There you go.
We do.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, that's their perception of America. So
Yeah.
think about that for a minute.
Boy.
I know. What are we pushing out there? What do you have next? What projects are you working on? What are you excited about?
Oh, so many fun things. So number one, we have launched this spring. We did a soft launch with what we call Shock Your Media Potential. So we are connecting. I got to interview Joan London, by the way.
No way.
So yes.
You've got quite a connection to ABC News.
I do.
Good Morning America. What the hell is that
So
all
my
about?
buddy,
like every time I look on your social media page, you're like hanging out with Robin Roberts. And
yeah.
you
And
like show up on the show. And what
I know.
is this?
I can't wait till they let people back in again. That's a whole, I mean, we could do
That's
a whole
another
episode.
podcast?
Yeah. Suffice it to say that Robin Roberts and Michael Strahan,
yeah.
that whenever I go, they'll come out and hug me, and even when it's pandemic time.
That's cool.
So wonderful, incredible people. But they
are.
But I also now have a really great buddy, Eddie Luisi, who's one of the stage managers.
Oh, that doesn't
So he knew I was doing this Shock Your Media Potential, and what we're doing is we are connecting people like me who are experts in job hunting and those types of things, or whatever it is, whatever your specialty is. Mm-hmm. We are connecting them with people that are news producers, anchors, reporters, and we're creating a platform where people can be searched,
almost like an agent.
So this is something I'm really excited about. So we did.
You're gonna hook me up on the storytelling side?
Heck yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, because I mean, this is so much fun. And so as part of that, we did a virtual conference where I interviewed Tom Bergeron from Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, Tom Bergeron.
Spencer Christian, who used to be the weather guy on Good Morning America long ago. I love him. I got to have lunch with him too when I went to San Francisco.
That's cool.
Joan London. I mean, just incredible. And we're going to do these quarterly, just with like 10 to 15 people this time. So we've got Wolfgang Puck, who's already on next one. We've got a couple other people. Carla Hall, we're hopeful that she's going to say yes. So those are fun things. But also another thing I'm really excited about is starting in June, this is the first time I've done this. I'm doing an online community for sales. And it's called Shock Your Sales Potential. And every Tuesday I will lead an hour training virtually. And so the first 25 minutes is me actually talking about how we're doing things like, how do you really actually do lead generation so you don't come across as the jerk that, tries to sell you the moment they connect with you on LinkedIn. Right. How do you make decisions about who you want to do business with? And so we're starting that in June. So the first 25 minutes is me like leading a topic in a training. And the second is open mic, basically for people to do Q&A. So they'll be able to ask direct questions. I mean, because this is what I do, and I get paid a lot of money to go train companies how to do this.
Right.
And now I'm bringing it for like all of June is going to be free, but then will be a very, very small like monthly fee for people to be a part of it. But then I can reach more people.
So how do people find that if they're interested?
If they come to shockyourpotential.com or just email me at michael@shockyourpotential.com, I'll send details. But we're going to start promoting it week after next. And it's just going to grow.
That's
so cool. We've already got several hundred people.
Do you have any time for you?
I do, actually. And that's...
I know, you're kind of Einstein time. We talked about that.
It is.
Like you create your own time, right?
I am.
If you're doing what you love.
And I think that's where, that kind of comes full circle to where we started is, 2 years ago before the pandemic, my 2020 and 2021 was booked. Like I was on an airplane every other week. Yeah. If not every week.
Which you loved.
Which I loved, but it was exhausting.
Yeah, it is exhausting.
And I didn't realize the toll that was taking to me until then all of a sudden my husband's working from home every day, and after I got used to him in the house, we'd have lunch together every day.
He's a cool dude, by the way.
Thank you. He's so awesome.
Yeah, it was great to meet him.
But we just would have lunch every day. We did not schedule anything from 12 to 1. Wow. And so it gave me a different appreciation for the balance in my life and what I want. So now instead of
Do you still do that?
Yeah. Well, when he's home. Now he's actually, they only work from home on Fridays, but now they've added Mondays and Fridays.
So you still get some time.
Yeah, we still get some time.
That's a good lesson.
But we just really said this is really important and we're going to prioritize this more. Short, yeah. And so now to do things like build the sales community, it also gives me greater reach for people in a little bit more intimate setting to be able to say, here's how we can really evolve from a sales. And so a lot of people that are going to be participating are people who, are trying to close new deals, or, what if I want to, change my career, or what if I am in sales, or what if I want to become an entrepreneur? It's all sales. And it doesn't have to be a bad
story,
thing.
I think.
Exactly. So how do you find the right way to tell your story in a way that feels true to you?
To the right people.
To the right people in the right way.
Yep.
And that's to me, that's going to be something that's a game changer for me.
That's cool.
Because that's going to build a completely different format for what I do.
What the other question I wanted to ask before we wrap up is, what has it been like to be a she/her with the name Michael? There have probably been some, especially when it comes to business and work. How many times have you been mistaken for a dude? And it either pissed you off or was like, hey, I'll take advantage of that.
How many times? If I had a nickel, and there's
Are
a
you
great
glad
song.
your parents named you that or not?
Yes, I am now.
Okay, why?
By the way, there's also a song that says, "My name is Michael. I have a nickel, shiny and new."
I knew she'd sing. I knew she'd sing.
Where that's from?
Broadway.
Yeah, that's right. When I was young, I don't know that I appreciated it so much, and so I was embarrassed.
Did it bug you? Were you embarrassed by it?
Yes, I was. And so my middle name is Anne
I always thought it
Marie.
was super cool.
Well, thank you.
I was like, Michael, whoa, that's cool.
By
it
the
was
time
totally memorable.
By the time I was in 6th grade, I was very comfortable with it. But by that time, I had taught people to call me Michael Ann. So my middle name's Anne Marie.
That's right. You were kind of Michael Ann, yeah.
So a lot of people still call me that.
That's
Then
right.
there was a time where I was like, don't call me Michael Ann. And I'm like, whatever.
Why did they name you that?
So I was adopted, and my given name at birth was very unique, and I was born in Spokane. And so my parents, when they got me, this is an adoption that should have never happened, because today you can't.
It wouldn't happen today.
It wouldn't happen today. Yeah, I'm so thankful it happened, because my parents found out about it from a friend of a friend that there was somebody who had a baby, and they didn't know what to do with this baby, and all kinds of chaos. And my parents said, "We'll take care of her." And they hoped they would be able to adopt me.
That happened a lot.
I was 8 weeks old. They didn't find out until I was a year and a half that they could actually adopt me. And as the story goes, my dad always had
They cared for you before you were adopted.
Oh, absolutely. From the time I was 8 weeks. And as the story goes, my dad was always ready to drive to Canada if they said, you can't keep this baby.
I'm not losing this girl.
But when they first got me, they first called me, so my given middle name at birth was Marie. So they called me Marie for a while. Then they started calling me Anne Marie. And we had a friend of the family who was a Jesuit priest. His name was Father Mike. And he always wanted one of the Sherlock kids to be named after him.
No way.
None of them
That's
are.
hilarious.
And they said, well, this is the last one we're going to have. So if we get a keeper, we'll name her Michael. And
that's cool.
Then they decided.
Who was the priest,
Yeah, Father Mike Toulouse.
Huh. Very cool.
And so so it was a joke at first. So they're like, oh, it's a joke. But then when they were able to adopt me, they said, we really actually like this.
It's a really cool name.
Thank you.
It was, back then.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of Michael's.
Yeah, Michael Learned was the only other woman. Yeah.
Correct.
And I, to answer your question, has there been times when it's been frustrating? Yeah, but not that many. Have I enjoyed it and made the most out of it? Absolutely.
I'm sure you have.
Absolutely. And there's times that I forget, and I'll get on a call with somebody and they're like, is Michael joining us? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I am Michael. Like with my podcast, I'm like, how come you have not researched me? I've researched you before. Dude. So if you weren't sure I was a woman.
Whoa.
So it's been interesting, but I'll tell you, at this stage of my life, I love my name so much. I have so much fun with it.
Very cool.
And whether people call me Michael Ann, very few people call me Mike. Paige Riley,
I used to call you Mike. Actually.
Yeah, and some people did. Paige Riley, who was in choir with us at prep, and then she was my roommate in college. She has always called me Mikey. There's only one other person I've ever allowed to call me Mikey. But it's fun, and it is different. And I think with me, it was the exact right name that I needed.
You grew into that.
I certainly did.
Few people could probably pull it off the way you have. I would guess that's the case. I ask this occasionally, and I haven't asked it enough on this podcast, but most interesting person that you've ever met that we wouldn't know who it is,
Oh, you didn't give me a heads up about that.
No, I did not.
Oh, man.
And the clock is ticking.
Oh, geez, Louise. The most interesting person that I've met that not anybody.
Yeah, most interesting person you've ever met.
Oh, God. We're going to have to edit a whole bunch of this stuff out. In my mind, I'm like, that's too much dead air, Michael. It's too much dead air.
It's not live. It's a podcast.
Actually, you know what? Let me just go back to what I know right now. Eddie Luisi, the stage manager at Good Morning America.
Yeah.
He is the most beautiful soul. And when I first met him, he handed me his business card. You know, he knew that I had known Robin, or, you know, that Robin had invited me to the Good Morning America. Robin Roberts, throwing around names like I'm so fancy.
You're so fancy.
She had invited me to come to the studio, and it was really great. And I just loved him. And he has this, then he invited me, he knew what I did then, and he invited me to join a group that he has called Friends in the Spirit 111. And he does a lot of ministry stuff. And he's got all these people that are like in the media, but that are also, I'm not overly religious anymore, but I love his religion. I love the faith that he brings to me. And so it
means a lot to him.
And he is such a connector. Like he didn't know I was going to ask him to co-host with me for all these interviews with Joan London and stuff. But he brought a lot of those people to me just because. He's like, well, they're friends of mine. I asked Joan London, what do you think? I'm like, yeah, I think so. That'd be awesome. Wow, cool. He's such a giver. But what I love about him is that his goal in life is just to bring joy. You know, just to make connections, just to have people care for each other. And the element of him resonates with everybody, with every famous person that comes on that set, with every non-famous person. Right? Yes. And I knew he was special, but when I took my husband and his daughter and her boyfriend to the set of Good Morning America several years ago, they loved meeting Robin Roberts. They loved Michael Strahan. You know, they got hugs and pictures with him. We have a picture of us behind the Good Morning America desk. But a great time. When we left the studio, no one could stop. Remembered. Everyone was like, that Eddie, he's so amazing. Yeah. Oh my God, he gave us the greatest hug.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I did this podcast, honestly, and why I thought it was so cool is because I get the chance to meet people nobody ever gets to meet. Yeah. That are doing amazing things. Yes. You know, like the former principal of Rogers High School today interviewed her for a project, and she is just unbelievable. You know, and just unbelievable. And she would, you know, I think she's way more interesting than someone who's famous, at least as an interviewer, because if you're famous, you're not going to give me everything. Right. You're not going to tell me the real stuff. You're not going to be as open as you're being. Yeah. You're not going to share because it's something you do all the time. Yeah. And you're guarded about it and you're careful and you've got your angle or whatever it is, you know. They're just not as interesting. Yeah. And we don't really ever get to meet them because I wouldn't if I was them. But you know, everybody else that I get to meet, they have nothing to lose. And they're telling you really what it is. And I find them way more interesting. Yeah. So that's been the reason and sort of the purpose behind this whole thing is because that's, you know, and I have had a couple people that are kind of, everybody does know. And so I don't know how to angle that. But when I tell them, it's sort of like, well, people know who I am. You know, I mean, Julia Sweeney's on this. Yeah. So you know, a lot of people know Julia Sweeney. Oh, did you have her? Yeah, it's going to be, that's a phenomenal episode. And she's, you know, I mean, dude, Saturday Night Live, she's huge. Like a lot of people know her, but I'm like, you know what? There's probably 2 billion people in China have no idea who you are. So you know, not everybody knows. But she's also, because of your history with her and her connection to this town and to the world, to my sister, I mean, to this Spokane world, I bet gave you a lot more. Oh my God, she was phenomenal. And she and my sister were pals in high school. Oh gosh, yes, I know. And of course, in the podcast, I forgot to mention my sister. Oh no, she's gonna be so pissed when she watches that. You didn't mention me. She probably won't, but I told Julie that after. I'm like, oh my God, I never mentioned Georgia. She's like, what? We never talked about Georgia. That's why I know you. That's so funny. You know, anyway. I always think of something later I should have asked. Yeah, I know. But okay, so how do people find the podcast? Your podcast? Yes. How many episodes? We are about ready to release 500. Oh, I know. I can't believe it. Okay, give me some tips. Well, a couple things. How's this going? And by the way, if you want to find it, shockyourpotential.com. You can find everything there. Just everything. That's right. I mean, lots of tips. I don't know that I have anything to offer you more than what you know and your experience in the industry that you're in. I mean, I'm only in 13 now. You got 500. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I have found is what we've done is we've evaluated the data. We know how long people listen and how when they cut off and what. So we found with our podcast that,
and I don't really give a damn, but okay,
yeah, exactly. Well, and I'm going to tell you something else. But we do know that with our listeners, to have them follow to the whole thing, if we go over 35 minutes, I tend to lose them. But that's because of our subject matter, because we're talking to entrepreneurs,
right?
So we're talking to
people that can't sit still anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But I keep people really succinct. But I'll tell you something. I'll tell you just some magic here.
Oh, this is good.
I know. This is going to blow your mind.
My God.
This also wraps
I may
back
cut
to
this out.
This is going to wrap back to sales.
Oh God.
So when you just said, I don't care, what, it doesn't matter to me when they listen. I don't care either. Because what I have found is that we do have people that follow us. I have people that listen to every single episode.
That's crazy.
And I'm thankful for that. I'm so grateful for that.
That's very cool.
But what I get is 20 to 25 one-on-one meetings with people who might be potential customers,
That's who
clients of mine.
Right.
Or they might be collaborators.
That's right.
We might have an affiliate relationship.
Yep. Same thing's happening to me, for sure.
And if you want to build your business and you figure out how to use a podcast the right way, it will develop relationships that you would have never, ever had before.
So that's the pitch for other people. Because I've had already every guest has been like, you should do a podcast. Because they should.
Yes.
Right? And there's a lot of advantages to it and a lot of stuff that's there. And we're talking about actually having a podcast studio here just for people to rent and do that. I think it'd be very cool.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's a really unique platform.
Yes.
Wow, that's cool.
Absolutely. And so I actually now have a new presentation that I do that's called How to Podcast Your Way to Hot New Leads. And so I do it at a lot of small business expos and different programs like that, because I talk about what I do and what I learned and whether or not and you don't have to run your own podcast. You can be guests on other people's podcasts.
Exactly.
We actually do that too. We match people with other podcasts. We get other guests for people's podcasts. So because of the list that we've built with these 500 guests that we've had, and 60% of them have their own podcast, we now have this huge network of really amazing people that we've already vetted. So I already know they're great guests, or I know they're going to be great hosts.
Specific to the topic you're talking about, which is really sales. And mine's like purposely unlimited by who's on it. And that was one of the first questions. It was like, who are you going to have in your podcast? I'm like, I already have a list. It's like 110 people. I'm just like, I'm never going to get to everybody. And there'll always be somebody new, and you're going to suggest somebody that should be on and all that stuff. And we haven't done any remote ones yet, but I know I'm going to. And you probably do a lot of those. I would imagine. If you're doing that many, they have to be Zoomy.
Oh yeah, I do. We do all ours by Zoom now. Now, before the pandemic, I had started taping them live. So like when I did Eddie Luisi's, we did it not in the Good Morning America studio, but we did it in one of the sound booths in Good Morning America, and it was awesome. I mean, it was. I mean, I did one with the gals and one of the people at the Girl Scouts. And I did Global Traveler magazine in their location, and those are very beneficial. So it doesn't have to be sales to get a benefit from this. It's about who are you trying to meet, why do you want to meet them, and figure out what kind of questions. Don't try and use it to sell them.
No.
Use it to get to know them and ask yourself, do I like this person?
That's very cool.
Do I like their business? And if I do, is there synergy? And I'll tell you, 95% of the time I get off that, we hit end of the taping and either I or that person will say, how can we work together?
Right. And the other part of that is I think it's a lesson from what I've learned from this and sort of jumping out and doing this is that if you think that you could, you should.
Yes.
Because you're probably know more and there are a lot of people that want to know what you're thinking of. And this is a global enterprise.
Absolutely.
We've got listeners in, like 8 countries now, kind of all over the world, which is weird. And you must have all over the place. So, I mean, that's the other cool part of it is you can't just think of your own little world, even though this is very Spokane-centric kind of. Yeah. I mean, most of the people here, are people that I know that are from here, but it never feels like that to me. I don't want it to be that. I don't want it to be, because there are people that have come and gone and, that are here sometimes, and there's a lot of interesting people that collect in this little pocket of the world. Like
Amen. Thank you.
You're always welcome. You're always welcome back. Yay. All right. We'll see you again. Oh, cheers. Wait a minute. Oh, we probably should get more.
We'll do that afterward.